My wife smiled when I signed over the house. She smiled wider when I signed over the cars. And when I signed over the company I had built with my own hands for 19 years, from one van and a toolbox to 38 employees and $6.2 million in annual revenue, she smiled the way a woman smiles when she believes she has won everything, and the man across the table has lost his mind. She was half right. She had won everything. But I hadn't lost my mind. I had used it. It was February 11th, 2025. Courtroom 4, B, Jefferson County Family Court, Louisville, Kentucky. My divorce attorney, Barrett Holcomb, was sitting beside me with the expression of a man who had been arguing against this moment for 9 months and had finally accepted that his client was either a genius or clinically insane, and that the difference between those two things would only become apparent in the next 45 minutes. Across the table, Simone Dunn, my wife of 18 years, the mother of my 2 children, the woman who had been sleeping with a real estate broker named Cormac Vickers for 14 months while I was crawling through mechanical rooms at 5 a.m. installing chillers in hospital basements, was sitting beside her attorney, Quentin Ashford, looking at the settlement agreement like it was a Christmas list that Santa had approved in full. The house, hers, the cars, hers, the savings, split, with her half sitting in her account. The retirement, split via QDRO. The company, 50% ownership transferred to her immediately, with operational control while I stepped away. Everything she had asked for. Everything she had demanded. Everything her $550 an hour attorney had spent 9 months positioning her to receive. "Mr. Dunn," the judge said, "you understand that you are agreeing to transfer the majority of your marital assets to the petitioner? Your attorney has confirmed that this is your voluntary decision?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And you have been advised of your rights regarding equitable distribution under Kentucky law?" "I have." "Very well. The court accepts the settlement as presented." The gavel came down. Simone turned to Quentin Ashford and hugged him, which is something people do when they think their lawyer has just made them rich. Quentin hugged back, but his eyes were somewhere else, scanning the asset declarations one more time, the way a surgeon checks the X-ray one more time before closing, because something in the numbers was bothering him and he couldn't quite place it. I stood up, buttoned my jacket, shook Barrett's hand, and I walked toward the door. "Fletcher." I turned. Simone was standing behind the table, arms crossed, the smile still on her face but sharpened now, edged with the particular cruelty that comes from winning and wanting the loser to know it. "No hard feelings," she said. "No feelings at all, Simone." She laughed. The laugh of a woman who believes she has taken everything from a man and left him standing in an empty room. She was right about the empty room. She was wrong about what was in it. I walked out of the courthouse into the February cold of Louisville, got into a rental car I had been driving for 3 months because I no longer owned a vehicle, and drove to my apartment in Germantown, a 1-bedroom on Goss Avenue that cost $850 a month and had a kitchen the size of a commercial refrigerator and a view of a parking lot. I sat on my couch. The apartment was quiet. The kind of quiet that happens when a man has voluntarily signed away his house, his cars, his company, and his savings, and the only sound left is his own breathing and the distant certainty that he has just executed the most calculated series of decisions of his entire life. My phone buzzed. A text from Barrett Holcomb. "You're either the smartest client I've ever had or the dumbest. I'll know which in about 6 months." I texted back, "Check in at 6 months. I'll be busy." I was busy. But before I tell you what I was busy doing, before I tell you about the new company and the old clients and the reputation that no settlement agreement can transfer, I need to tell you about the 9 months between May 2024, when I found out about the affair, and February 2025, when I signed over everything with a steady hand and a clear conscience. Because those 9 months are the story. Those 9 months are the chess game. And every move I made was legal, deliberate, and designed to ensure that Simone Dunn got exactly what she deserved. May 14th, 2024. A Tuesday evening. I was sitting in my truck in the driveway of our house on Woodbourne Avenue in the Highlands, a 4-bedroom, 2.5-bath colonial that we had purchased in 2012 for $520,000, and that was now worth approximately $680,000, mostly because I had spent 12 years maintaining it with my own hands, because when you're an HVAC and mechanical contractor, your own house is the one building you never send a bill for. My phone buzzed. A text from Simone. Except it wasn't for me. It was a photograph, Simone in lingerie I had never seen, in a hotel room I didn't recognize, with a caption that said, "Can't wait for Thursday, same room, bring the wine." The photograph was meant for Cormac Vickers. It was sent to Fletcher Dunn. The most devastating moment of my marriage arrived through the most mundane technology of the modern age, an accidental text. One wrong name in the contact list. One tap on the wrong conversation. And 18 years of marriage detonated in the time it takes a phone screen to load a JPEG. I sat in the truck for 38 minutes. I know because the dashboard clock was running and I was the kind of man who noticed clocks even when his world was collapsing. I looked at the photograph. I looked at the house. I looked at the photograph again. And somewhere between minute 12 and minute 38, something inside me shifted. Not broke, shifted. The way a load-bearing wall shifts when the foundation settles. The wall doesn't fall, the house doesn't collapse, but everything above it is now slightly off level, and it will never be plumb again. I walked inside. Simone was in the kitchen, making dinner, humming something, the picture of domestic normalcy. A woman who had spent the afternoon sending lingerie photos to another man and was now chopping onions for a pasta sauce like the two activities existed in separate universes. Simone. I held up my phone, showed her the photograph. Didn't say a word, didn't need to. The photograph said everything that language was too slow to deliver. Her face went through 3 stages in about 4 seconds. Recognition, that's my photo. Calculation, how do I explain this? And arrival, I can't. Fletcher, who is he? It's not what you... Simone, who is he? Cormac Vickers. He's a broker. We met at the United Way Gala last year. The gala my company sponsored. Yes. How long? Fletcher, how long, Simone? Since March last year. 14 months. She had been sleeping with another man for 14 months. 14 months of lies, of alibis, of Wednesday night book clubs, and Saturday afternoon errands, and the elaborate architecture of deception that affairs require, which is its own kind of full-time job. I set the phone down on the counter, walked upstairs, sat on the edge of our bed, the bed I had slept in for 12 years, the bed where my children had climbed in on Sunday mornings, the bed that was now just furniture in a room full of lies. And I thought, not about the affair, not about Cormac Vickers and his wine and his hotel room. I thought about the game. Because Simone had just played a card she didn't mean to show me, and the question was not how I felt about it. The question was what I was going to do about it. I am a mechanical engineer. I build systems, I diagnose problems, I understand how things work. Not just machines, but processes, sequences, the chain of cause and effect that determines outcomes. And in that moment, sitting on the edge of a bed in a house that was about to become a battlefield, I began designing a system. The system's objective: ensure that Simone Dunn gets exactly what she asks for. All of it. Every last thing. And ensure that every last thing she gets is worth as little as possible when she gets it. The next morning, Simone came to me with a statement, not a conversation. I want a divorce, Fletcher, and I want the house, the cars, everything, the company too. The company. You built it during our marriage. Kentucky is an equitable distribution state. My lawyer says I could get 40 to 50%, but I want all of it. Call it compensation for 18 years. Compensation for 18 years of what? Of being married to a man who loves air conditioners more than his wife. I looked at her. This woman I had married at 29. This woman I had built a life with. A business alongside, a family within. This woman who had spent 18 years benefiting from the income of a company I started with one van and a toolbox, who lived in a house my hands maintained, who drove a car my revenue paid for, and who had decided that the appropriate compensation for those 18 years was everything. Okay, I said, okay. Give me a few weeks to talk to a lawyer. But if that's what you want, the house, the cars, the company, everything, I'll give it to you. She looked at me with suspicion. People who expect a fight are unsettled by surrender. You'll give it to me? Everything you're asking for, yes. Just like that? Just like that. She walked away confused, which was the first move in a game she didn't know she was playing. Barrett Holcomb's office was in a converted Victorian on Bardstown Road. He had been practicing family law for 25 years and had the particular weariness, of a man who has watched hundreds of marriages end and has stopped being surprised by any of it. Give her everything, I said. Fletcher, that is the worst legal strategy I have heard in 25 years of practice. It's not a legal strategy, it's a mechanical one. Explain. Simone wants the house, the cars, the company, the savings, the retirement, everything. She thinks she's taking the golden goose. What she doesn't understand is that the golden goose is only valuable if someone feeds it, maintains it, and keeps it alive. She doesn't know how to do any of those things. She thinks ownership is value. I'm going to show her that ownership without competence is just expensive responsibility. How? By making sure that everything she receives is technically real, but practically worthless. Not by hiding assets. That's illegal, and I won't do it. By making legitimate business decisions that reduce the value of what she's taking. She wants the company? Fine. By February, the company will be a name on a filing with some used trucks and no pipeline. She wants the house? Fine. The house needs $65,000 in repairs that I've been deferring. She wants the cars? Fine. My truck has 168,000 miles, and her Lexus is a lease she can't afford on $52,000 a year. Barrett looked at me for a long time. Everything you're describing is legal. Stopping new contracts is a business decision. Not renewing leases is a business decision. Paying off debt is financially responsible. Reducing your salary is your prerogative as CEO. Exactly. But the pattern, the aggregate effect of all these decisions taken together, could be argued as dissipation of marital assets. If her attorney can prove you deliberately devalued the company to deprive her, he can prove I made conservative decisions during a period of personal instability. I was going through a divorce. My wife of 18 years was having an affair. I was emotionally compromised, so I pulled back, reduced risk, tightened the operation, paid off debt. Every decision I made is the decision a responsible businessman makes when his life is falling apart. And the fact that every decision also reduces her take is coincidental. Barrett, I'm a mechanical engineer. In my profession, we don't believe in coincidence. We believe in systems. He almost smiled. I'm not going to pretend I approve of this, but I'm not going to pretend it won't work either. It'll work. I just need 9 months. 9 months. The time it takes to build a human being. Also, the time it takes to unbuild a company, piece by piece, decision by decision without breaking a single law. Move 1. Stop taking new contracts, June 2024. Dunn Mechanical Systems had a pipeline of approximately $3.8 million in pending and upcoming contracts. Hospital, HVAC installations, hotel mechanical systems, office building retrofits. I completed every existing contract, honored every commitment, finished every job, the same standard I had maintained for 19 years. But I stopped bidding on new work. When my estimator, a man named Wade Buckner, asked why we weren't submitting proposals, I told him the truth, part of it. I'm going through a divorce, Wade. I'm pulling back on growth until things stabilize. Wade accepted it. Because that's what responsible business owners do during personal crises. They consolidate, they protect, they stop taking risks. It's textbook conservative management. It also happens to be the most effective way to drain a company's future value without touching its present assets. Move 2. Let equipment leases expire. The company operated 12 service trucks, mostly on 3-year leases. 4 leases expired in July to September 2024. 3 more in October to December 2024. I returned all 7 trucks at lease end. Didn't renew, didn't replace. The fleet shrank from 12 to 5. The lease companies didn't question it. Companies downsize fleets all the time. The IRS didn't question it. Fewer vehicles means fewer deductions, which means more taxable income, which is the opposite of what a man would do if he were trying to hide money. Every decision I made looked responsible on paper, because it was responsible for me. Move 3. Don't replace departing employees. When you stop taking new contracts and shrink your fleet, your employees notice. The good ones, the ones with options, start looking elsewhere. Between July and December 2024, 24 employees left Dunn Mechanical. I replaced 0. Not because I was being spiteful, because there was no work for them to do. I didn't fire anyone. I didn't lay anyone off. I let attrition do the work, which is the quietest and most defensible way to reduce a workforce. The employees who left found jobs quickly. HVAC technicians are in high demand in Louisville. Nobody suffered except the company's headcount, which dropped from 38 to 14. Move 4. Accelerate debt payments. Dunn Mechanical had $280,000 in outstanding business loans and lines of credit, standard operating debt for a company of our size. Instead of maintaining the debt, which is normal, I used the company's cash reserves to pay it down aggressively. By December 2024, the debt was zero. A zero debt sounds good. It is good for the balance sheet, but it also means zero cash reserves. The company's bank account went from $340,000 to approximately $15,000 over 6 months. The money didn't disappear. It went to pay off legitimate debt. But the cash that would have made the company attractive to a new owner or a new co-owner named Simone was gone. Move 5. Reduce my salary. As CEO, I controlled my own compensation. In July 2024, I reduced my salary from $185,000 to $45,000, the minimum I needed to cover rent, food, and child-related expenses. This did 2 things. First, it reduced the marital income that the court uses to calculate alimony. Second, it starved the household lifestyle that Simone was accustomed to, the lifestyle she would need the divorce settlement to maintain. Simone noticed the income drop immediately. Why is your paycheck smaller? The company is contracting. I'm reducing overhead, starting with my own salary. You can't just cut your own salary. I'm the CEO. I can, and I did. My lawyer is going to hear about this. Tell him. He'll find a CEO who reduced his own pay during a business contraction. That's called leadership. Move 6. The house. I moved out of the Woodbourne house in June 2024. Voluntarily, no court order. I rented the 1-bedroom in Germantown and told Simone she could have the house. What I didn't tell her was what the house needed. In 19 years of home ownership, I had been the maintenance department. Fixing, patching, deferring, the way homeowners do when they have the skills to keep things running without calling a contractor. The roof needed replacement, $28,000 minimum. The HVAC system, ironically, was 15 years old and on its last legs, $18,000 for a new one. The basement had a moisture problem that needed waterproofing, $19,000. Total deferred maintenance, approximately $65,000. Simone didn't know about any of this because Simone had never thought about the roof, the HVAC, or the basement. She thought about the kitchen, the master bathroom, and the view of the back garden. She thought about the house the way people think about cars. If it's running and it's pretty, it's fine. The fact that the engine is about to throw a rod doesn't register until the rod goes through the hood. Move 7. Let the chess clock run. I could have pushed for a quick settlement. Barrett recommended it. Get the divorce done fast before Simone's attorney could scrutinize the declining numbers. But speed wasn't my objective. Time was my weapon. Every month that passed was another month of declining revenue, departing employees, expiring leases, and eroding value. I needed 9 months. I needed Simone's greed to keep her focused on the prize while the prize was deflating. She obliged. Quinton Ashford filed motion after motion, discovery requests, deposition notices, financial interrogatories. Each one took weeks to process. Each one gave me another month of controlled contraction. Every time Ashford demanded a new financial disclosure, the numbers were smaller than the last one. He assumed the company was seasonal, cyclical, going through a rough patch. He didn't realize the rough patch was engineered. My mother, Opal, was the only person I told about the strategy. She was 74, retired, living in Bardstown, the kind of woman who had survived a difficult marriage of her own. My father died in 2008, but the marriage had been effectively over since 2001, and had the earned cynicism of someone who understands that the legal system's idea of fairness and a working person's idea of fairness are not the same thing. "You're giving her everything?" she said over Sunday lunch at her kitchen table. "Everything she asks for. And everything she asks for is going to be worth less than she thinks. Significantly less. Fletcher, your father would have done the same thing." She paused. "Except he would have taken the dog too. We don't have a dog." "Then you're already ahead. Now, let me take you back to the courtroom. February 11th, 2025. The moment after the gavel. The moment after Simone hugged her lawyer. The moment she didn't know about yet. Quentin Ashford was reviewing the final asset declarations. These are the documents that list the current value of all assets being transferred. He had seen earlier drafts, but the final versions, filed that morning, reflected the most current valuations, and the most current valuations reflected 9 months of systematic contraction. I was walking toward the courtroom door when I heard it. First, the murmur, Quentin's voice, low, pulling Simone aside in the hallway just outside the courtroom. I couldn't hear the exact words from where I was, but I could see Simone's face through the glass panel in the door. I watched her expression change the way I've watched pressure gauges change on mechanical systems, a steady reading, then a fluctuation, then the rapid swing that tells you something has failed. The company is worth nothing. 5 words. I didn't hear Quentin say them, but I knew that's what he said because Simone's face told me everything. The color drained, the smile collapsed. The triumph evaporated like condensation on a cold pipe, there for a moment, then gone, leaving only the surface underneath, which was cold and hard and nothing like what it looked like when it was covered. "What?" Simone's voice echoed down the courthouse hallway. Not a whisper. A scream. The scream of a woman who has just learned that the golden goose she spent 9 months fighting for was dead on. A rival. The company revenue has dropped 70%. The fleet is 5 trucks, down from 12. The workforce is 14, down from 38. There are no new contracts in the pipeline. The hard assets, the remaining trucks, equipment, tools, are worth approximately $400,000 total. Your 50% share is $200,000 in depreciating equipment. He gutted it. He destroyed the company on purpose. He made business decisions during a period of personal instability. He stopped bidding. He downsized. He paid off debt. He did it to cheat me. Simone, every action he took is individually defensible. He completed existing contracts. He didn't break any leases. He let them expire. He didn't fire anyone. He didn't replace people who left. He paid off $280,000 in business debt, which is financially responsible. And he reduced his own salary, which reduced marital income calculations. So there's nothing we can do? Quentin was quiet for a moment. We could file a dissipation claim. Argue that the aggregate pattern of decisions constitutes deliberate devaluation. But we'd need to prove intent, that he made these decisions specifically to deprive you of value, not because he was managing the business through a difficult period. He was managing the business through a difficult period. I was leaving him. That is the difficult period. Exactly. Which is why his defense works. A man going through a divorce pulled back, reduced risk, and consolidated operations. That's what responsible business owners do. The fact that it also reduced your share is what? A coincidence his attorney will call conservative management. Simone stared at Quentin. I could see it through the glass, the particular look of a woman who has just realized that the man she was divorcing was not the man she thought she was divorcing. She thought she was leaving an HVAC contractor who loved air conditioners more than his wife. She was actually leaving a mechanical engineer who had spent 9 months designing a system that delivered exactly what she asked for, at exactly the value she deserved. I pushed through the courthouse door, walked past them. Simone grabbed my arm. "You did this on purpose." I looked at her. The woman I had married, the woman I had built a company alongside, the woman who had sent a lingerie photo to the wrong man and detonated 18 years of life together. I gave you everything you asked for, Simone. Everything. The house, the cars, the company, the savings. I signed it all over. You stood in a courtroom and smiled. Your lawyer hugged you. The judge approved it. But it's worth exactly what it's worth. I didn't set the value. The market did. The business conditions did. The decisions I made over 9 months, decisions that any reasonable businessman would make during a divorce, did. You gutted your own company to spite me. I managed my company through a difficult period and made conservative business decisions. That's the finding your attorney will get if he files a dissipation claim, and Barrett Holcomb will be happy to defend every single decision in front of a judge, with financial statements, industry context, and expert testimony that says a man going through a divorce who pulls back on growth is doing what every financial advisor in America recommends. She let go of my arm. Her hand was shaking. Not with grief. With the specific, targeted anger of a person who has been outmaneuvered and knows it and can't prove it, and will spend the next year trying to prove it and failing. "You'll have nothing," she said. "You gave it all away." "I gave you things, Simone. Things that break, things that rust, Things that need maintenance you can't perform and payments you can't afford. I kept the only thing that matters. Which is what? My hands, my license, my reputation, my name, and 20 years of clients who know that when Fletcher Dunn says he'll be there Monday morning at 7 a.m., he'll be there Monday morning at 7 a.m. You can't take that. You can't sign that over. That lives in me, and I'm walking out of this courthouse with it. She stared at me. I turned and walked away. Down the hallway, through the lobby, out the front door, into the February air of Louisville, which was cold and clean and tasted like freedom. Barrett was waiting by my car. Leaning against the rental, arms crossed, the particular posture of a man who has just watched something he argued against for 9 months work exactly the way his client said it would. "Well," I said, "you know the dissipation claim is coming. Let it come. Ashford will argue the pattern. He'll say the aggregate effect, and you'll argue each decision individually. Conservative management during personal crisis, CEO reducing risk, company responding to market conditions, responsible debt reduction. If a judge wants to penalize a man for paying off his loans and not overextending during a divorce, that judge is welcome to try." Barrett shook his head. "In 25 years, I have never seen a client play a divorce settlement like a chess game. I'm not a lawyer, Barrett. I'm an engineer. Engineers don't argue. They build systems, and the system I built delivered exactly what it was designed to deliver. Which is? Everything Simone asked for, at the price she earned." The Cormac Vickers chapter ended the way those chapters always end, quickly, quietly, with the particular fizzle of a romance that was built on the excitement of secrecy and couldn't survive the ordinariness of availability. By May 2025, 3 months after the divorce was final, Cormac had stopped returning Simone's calls. Men who pursue married women are pursuing the thrill of the forbidden, and once the marriage is gone, the thrill goes with it. Simone found herself alone in a $680,000 house with a $2,800 monthly mortgage, a leaking roof, a dying HVAC system, a Lexus, lease she couldn't afford, 50% of a company that was hemorrhaging what little value it had left, and a boyfriend who had moved on to the next married woman with the seamless efficiency of a man who has done this before. Meanwhile, I was building. March 2025. 2 weeks after the divorce was final. I registered a new company with the Kentucky Secretary of State, Dunn & Sons Mechanical, LLC. The name was aspirational. Beckett was 16 and had no interest in mechanical contracting yet, although he had been handing me wrenches since he was 8 and could identify a compressor by sound. But the name was also a statement. This wasn't a restart. It was a continuation. A Dunn was back in the mechanical business, and this time there was no wife to sign the company over to. I bought a used Ford Transit van for $22,000. Outfitted it with tools, many of which I already owned personally, separate from the company's assets. Printed business cards, set up a phone line, and I made the first call. "Hey, it's Fletcher. I'm back. New company. Same quality. Same Fletcher." The client, a property manager for a chain of medical offices across Louisville, paused for about 2 seconds. Then he said, "When can you start? We've been waiting for you." They had been waiting. Because when Dunn Mechanical started declining, when the service calls went unanswered and the response times doubled, and the technicians who showed up weren't the ones they knew, the clients didn't blame the company. They blamed the absence. They knew Fletcher Dunn. They had worked with Fletcher Dunn for 15 years, and they wanted Fletcher Dunn back. I hired Jennings Ward first. Jennings was 44, had been my foreman for 14 years, and was one of the 24 employees who had left during the contraction. He had taken a job at a competitor, hated it after 3 months, and called me in January asking if I had anything. "I'm starting a new company in March," I told him. "Same work, smaller, starting over. I'm in." "You don't want to know the salary?" "Fletcher, I've worked for 3 companies in my career. 2 of them treated me like a time card. You treated me like a person. I'm in." I hired 2 more, a journeyman tech named Corbin Platt and a young apprentice named Denise Fogg, 23, fresh out of trade school, the only woman in her HVAC certification class and the best diagnostician in it. 3 employees, 1 van, and a phone that started ringing. By June 2025, Dunn & Sons had 8 employees, 3 trucks, and a revenue run rate of $2.4 million. Not $6.2 million, not yet. But $2.4 million in 4 months, built on reputation alone, is the kind of growth that venture capitalists would kill for, and that I achieved with a used van and a phone list. By September 2025, we had landed a contract with Louisville's largest hospital system, a 3-year mechanical services agreement worth $1.2 million annually. The same hospital system that had been a Dunn Mechanical client for 12 years. They came back not because I was cheaper. They came back because the technician who answered their emergency call at 2 a.m. on a Saturday was Jennings Ward, and Jennings had been servicing their chillers since 2011, and the hospital's facilities director said, "I don't care what the company's called. If Jennings and Fletcher are there, we're there." Reputation. The asset that doesn't appear on any balance sheet. The asset that can't be transferred in a divorce settlement. The asset that Simone's lawyer never thought to ask for because it has no line item, no dollar value, no box to check on a financial disclosure form. Simone filed a dissipation claim in April of 2025. Quentin Ashford argued that the pattern of business decisions, stopped contracts, expired leases, workforce reduction, debt payoff, salary cut, constituted deliberate dissipation of marital assets designed to deprive Simone of her equitable share. Barrett. Holcomb defended every decision individually. He brought in a forensic accountant who testified that each decision was consistent with standard business practice during periods of owner distress. He brought in an industry expert who testified that HVAC contractors routinely contract during economic uncertainty and personal crises. He brought in the financial statements showing that debt reduction improved the company's balance sheet even as revenue declined. The judge reviewed the evidence for 3 weeks. In June, she issued her ruling, no finding of dissipation. Each decision was individually defensible. The aggregate pattern, while suspicious, did not meet the legal standard for intentional devaluation. The court notes, the judge wrote, that the respondent's business decisions, while resulting in a significant reduction in company value, are consistent with the actions of a business owner managing operations during a period of substantial personal upheaval. The court cannot conclude that these decisions were made primarily to deprive the petitioner of her equitable share. Barrett called me with the ruling. "You won." "I won 9 months ago, Barrett. This is just the paperwork." Simone put the house on the market in August 2025. The listing price was $680,000. The home inspector's report came back with $65,000 in required repairs. Roof, HVAC, basement waterproofing. The same repairs I had been deferring for years because I could manage them myself. Simone couldn't manage them because Simone had never held a wrench in her life, and the contractors she called quoted her full retail, which is what happens when you don't know the business and the business knows you don't. The house sold for $598,000, $82,000 below asking, after the buyers negotiated repair credits. After the mortgage payoff, $410,000, and real estate commissions, $36,000, Simone walked away with approximately $152,000. The Lexus lease expired in November. She couldn't afford to buy it out. She turned it in and bought a used Honda Civic. The company, what was left of it, continued to decline. The 14 employees I had left behind dwindled to 6, then 3. Without new contracts, without leadership, without the reputation that had been the company's actual engine, Dunn Mechanical Systems was a name on a filing and a phone number that nobody called. Simone's 50% ownership of a dying company was worth, by November 2025, approximately $80,000 in remaining hard assets. She sold her share back to the other stakeholders, the remaining employees who had been given small ownership stakes as retention incentives, for $62,000. Total cash Simone extracted from everything. House proceeds, $152,000, plus savings, $70,000, plus company sale, $62,000, plus truck sale, $14,000, equals $298,000, plus $160,000 in retirement she couldn't touch for 14 years. Total value of everything she fought for, demanded, and won, less than $300,000 in accessible cash. The company, she thought was worth $2 million, netted her $62,000. The house she thought was worth $680,000 netted her $152,000. The victory she celebrated in a courtroom hallway was worth roughly 18 months of living expenses, after which she would be back to her $52,000 dental office salary and a Honda Civic. Meanwhile, Dunn & Sons Mechanical, my new company, built in 4 months with a used van and a phone, was approaching $3 million in annual revenue and growing. It's September 2025 now. 7 months since the hearing. Louisville autumn, the best season in a city that does seasons well. The trees along Bardstown Road turning gold and crimson, the air cooling toward bourbon weather, the particular energy of a city that is small enough to remember your name and big enough to give you room to rebuild. I'm in my office. Not a big office. A converted storefront on Shelby Street in Germantown that I lease for $1,400 a month. 3 desks, a dispatch board, a coffee maker that Jennings says is the most important piece of equipment in the building. The trucks are parked outside. The phone is ringing. Beckett comes to the shop after school on Fridays. He's 16, tall, mechanical in the way that sons of engineers are mechanical. He understands systems intuitively, the way some kids understand music or math. He's been learning to read blueprints. He helped Jennings replace a condenser coil last week and only dropped the wrench twice, which Jennings said was better than his father on his first day. That's a lie, I told Jennings. I never dropped a wrench. You dropped it into a ceiling plenum on your second job. It fell on a client's desk. The client was on the phone. We agreed never to speak of that. We agreed to a lot of things. I kept the important ones. Lennox visits on weekends. She's 13, quieter since the divorce, processing the way teenagers process, internally, privately, with occasional bursts of insight that catch you off guard. She asked me last month why I gave Mom everything. Because she asked for it. But you knew it wasn't worth what she thought. I knew that the things she valued most are things that lose value over time. Houses need roofs, cars need gas, companies need people. She wanted things. I kept skills. Is that why you're happy and she's not? I looked at my daughter, 13 years old and already understanding something that her mother never learned. I'm happy because I'm doing what I love with people I trust. Your mother is adjusting to a different situation. She'll find her way. Dad? Yeah? I want to learn how to fix stuff. Like you do. What kind of stuff? All kinds. I want to know how things work. Then you've come to the right shop. My mother called last week. Opal Dunn, 74, Bardstown, calling to check on her son the way she's called to check on her son every Sunday since I left home at 18. How's the new company? Growing. We just signed the hospital contract. The big one. The big one. Fletcher, I need to tell you something. What? I was wrong when I said your father would have done the same thing. Wrong how? Your father would have fought her. He would have hired the most expensive lawyer in Louisville and fought for every fork and spoon. That's what stubborn men do. What you did was different. You didn't fight, you agreed. You gave her everything and let the everything speak for itself. That's not stubbornness, Fletcher, that's patience, and patience is worth more than every lawyer in Kentucky. Thanks, Mom. Also, you should get a dog. Noted. I think about the courtroom sometimes, not often, not with anger, with the particular satisfaction of a man who designed a system and watched it function exactly as intended. Simone wanted everything. I gave her everything. And everything turned out to be a house that needed a new roof, a car she couldn't afford, a company that was dying, and a boyfriend who left when the excitement did. I kept nothing. And nothing turned out to be my hands, my license, my reputation, my name, a used van, a phone list, and the knowledge that the most valuable thing a man owns is not what's on his balance sheet but what's in his skill set. She got the assets. I kept the ability to create assets. She got the company. I kept the ability to build companies. She got everything. I kept the only thing that matters, the capacity to start over and make it work. That's the difference between owning things and being someone. Owning things means you have what someone else built. Being someone means you can build it again, from nothing, anytime, anywhere. I've done it before, I'm doing it again, and I'll do it as many times as it takes because the man who knows how to build is never broke. He's just between projects. Now I want to ask you something. What would you do if your cheating wife demanded everything, the house, the cars, the company, all of it? Would you fight for every dollar? Would you hire the most expensive lawyer and drag it out for years? Or would you smile, sign it over, and walk out of the courthouse knowing that what you gave her was worth exactly what she earned, and what you kept was worth more than she'll ever understand? And here's the deeper question. Have you ever lost everything, or given everything away, and discovered that the loss was the beginning, not the end? That the things you kept, your skills, your name, your ability to show up at 7 a.m. and do the work, were worth more than everything on the other side of the settlement agreement? Because here's what I learned. Things depreciate, roofs leak, cars rust, companies die without the person who built them. But the person who built them, the engineer, the mechanic, the man with the wrench and the knowledge and the stubbornness to start over, that person doesn't depreciate. That person appreciates, every year, every job. Every Monday morning at 7 a.m., give her the house. Keep the hammer. The hammer builds houses. Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. If this story made you feel something, the satisfaction, the strategy, the quiet victory of a man who gave away everything and walked away with more, hit that like button. Share it with someone who's going through a divorce and needs to hear this. The things they're taking from you are not you. You are the builder, and the builder always wins. Comment your thoughts below and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another story. I'll see you in the next one.